Mad Dog McCree is very much a game of its time. In the early 90s, CD-based games were all the rage, and with that craze came new types of gameplay experiences. Developers were enamored with the new technology and its ability to hold exponentially more data than was previously possible with floppy disks or game cartridges. To that end, they decided that hand-drawing games like cartoons was outdated and that using real actors in video form was the way of the future. At the time, it seemed like a revolution. Games could now have spoken dialogue and real people acting out every frame. On paper, that seems much better than text and crudely drawn pixel art, but in practice, it just wasn't the case. While full-motion video games did offer more realistic-looking worlds, they failed to have the same level of interactivity that traditional games provided. We also quickly learned that just because you could have real people acting in games didn't necessarily mean that those people were any good at it. All of these pros and cons of FMV games exist in Mad Dog McCree. In fact, it's one of the earliest examples of the genre. Originating in arcades on a Laserdisc-based arcade cabinet, Mad Dog McCree was a showpiece in any arcade. In many ways, it drew from the success of Dragon's Lair, which also used Laserdiscs many years earlier. In any event, Laserdiscs never really caught on for gaming in the home, and so Mad Dog was ported to pretty much every CD-based system available, with varying results. My memory of the game is as my very first CD-based game for my PC, and so that's the version that I'll be talking about in this video. At the time, I had an IBM PS1, which had a stunning 66 MHz Intel Pentium processor. Clearly, I was ready for the digital media revolution. So later that year, must have been about 1991, my parents broke down and got me a CD drive for my computer. Finally, the future had arrived. The CD drive came with two CDs. First was Compton's Interactive Encyclopedia, which I wasn't really interested in, but kept around so my parents would think that computers were for learning. And second was Mad Dog McCree. At the time, Mad Dog blew my mind. It's hard to express just how much better it looked than any of the other games I had played on my PC, or even the console at that time. To put it into perspective, I played this game before the Super Nintendo was released. That means I went from Golden Axe on my PC and NES games to full-on video with voice. It was a major step. Not only that, but it was the only moving video I had seen on my computer monitor except for the few video clips that came with Windows 95, so needless to say, I was impressed. Starting the game up last week was definitely a blast from the past, but I knew there was no way the game could still hold up to my initial 10-year-old's impression, and sure enough, it can't. It would be hard to describe Mad Dog as a good game. It's super cheesy, very short, and offers almost no replay value since every scene plays out pretty much identically every time you play. But deep down, I still love this game. I think the overwhelming factor in this, however, is nostalgia. Playing it again a few days ago, I realized that even though I haven't played the game in 20 years, I still know every line of dialogue. That's not because the dialogue is good though, in fact far from it, but it has a strange way of being so bad that it sticks with you. I have a feeling someday I'll be in a nursing home, unable to recognize friends and family, but they'll push my wheelchair up to an old PC and I'll be able to recite every line of Mad Dog's dialogue without a hitch. There are really only two important points that make the DOS version different than any of the others. Number one, the video is super compressed. While it may have blown my 10-year-old mind back in the early 90s, it's definitely very compressed by today's standards. It looks a lot like an early YouTube video. Number two, it controls via the mouse. PCs didn't really have a light gun at the time, and so mouse control was your only option. I suppose it takes away from some of the novelty of the game, but honestly, it works pretty well for what it is. Would I prefer a light gun? Sure, but the mouse works alright. But no review of Mad Dog would be complete without at least some talk of how the actual gun works, so for that, I'm calling in my right-hand man. Rue, show him how it's done.
Thanks, Ben. Now the version of Mad Dog that I'd like to talk about is for the Philips CDI. I know. This actually was a package that not only included the game, but the Peacekeeper revolver and of course a receiver for said revolver. This made the game particularly hard to play, or, well, difficult I should say. Much like in the arcade, there's no reticle on the screen, and unlike using the PC, there's no mouse to easily find and click on your target. You just had to rely on your own set of, well, skills, I suppose. To finish a game of Mad Dog on the CDI, even without having to pay quarters, is very difficult. The CDI's Peacemaker gun is a classic blue, don't shoot me, this is a fake gun color. You basically have to put up a sensor in order to calibrate it, and after that, usually it's pretty good at getting the job done. I've seen lots of different schools of thought in play when it comes to how you should hold the gun, whether you should do 2 hands, 1 hand, how close, how far you should be, but in the end, Dog McCree for the CDI is just a really difficult game because there are no crosshairs. There's no way to know what you're shooting at is what you're shooting at until you pull that trigger, and then you'll run out of bullets. You have to shoot off the screen in order to regain them, so yeah, it is going to take a while to beat this game. On the plus side though, no quarters. You just had to pay like $600 for the console back in the day. What a steal! But in 2009, Majesco Entertainment released the Mad Dog McCree Gunslinger Pack for the Wii. This is actually 3 games in one. It's the original Mad Dog McCree, Mad Dog 2, The Legend of Curly's Gold, and The Last Bounty Hunter, which is kind of a spiritual successor in the series. In all, it's not a terrible port. It can include up to 4 players and, well, here, let me show you. The controls are pretty easy in that you can use either the A or B button to fire your gun. And it is kind of neat how the gun sound comes right from the Wii mode. However, you can see this reticle on the screen that tracks your movements because there's no easy way to actually look down the barrel of a gun at what you're firing at. Unfortunately, that makes everything just a little too easy. Unless you just wait too long and get shot in the face like I did. Overall, you can beat this game in maybe half an hour on the hardest difficulty setting. So, between the CDI version and the Wii version, there's probably some sweet spot of difficulty, but I haven't found it yet. Well, that's about all from me. Now back to Ben to bring it on home. Ben?
Other than that, there's not much to say. It's an on-rails shooting gallery set in the Old West. So rather than talk over it some more, I'm going to close this video with a few clips from the game so you can see for yourself some of that world-class acting I was telling you about.
Hi, you're new around these parts. You heading into my daddy's town? He's the mayor. Well, if you are, you better take up some target practice first. There's a mean bunch that showed up, and I'm scared. Well, you best set your sights. I'll see you back in town.
Thank God you're here with the keys. I gotta get out of here. Mad Dog, you don't stand a chance. Let's go get him, stranger.
Mad Dog will get me for telling you this, but if you get to the hideout, don't approach from the rear.
No. 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 Mad Dog, no.
Shoot the fuse! Shoot the fuse! Please, please! Ah, thanks, stranger. That was close. You got to hurry. The map to Mad Dog's hideout is in the mine. You got to shoot the lantern to get in the mine. Go for it.
My keys, stranger? Jocko. Huh? Show 'em what we do to troublemakers. And kablam and ba-doo-ba-doo-ba-doo-ba-doo.